Hi, I'm Victor Coleman. My new BookThug book is 4H, An Alphamath Serial. Well, the alpha part is obviously the alphabet. And oddly enough, the alphabet contains 26 letters. 26 is an interesting number. If you double it, you get 52, which is the number of cards in a deck, number of weeks in a year. And this book, oddly enough, goes away from the last two books, which each contained 52 poems. And we're also alphabetical in ways. This book the idea for this book came from a book that my wife Kate gave me. I was looking for a Georges Perec on the left bank, and those big book-stalls they have in Paris. And they didn't have any Georges Perecs, but she found this book by Raymond Queneau called Un Rude Hiver. And I thought, well, this is great. Queneau, the founder of Oulipo. And so I was thinking of using it somehow, and I wasn't quite sure how. The title of the book, Un Rude Hiver, I thought was extremely Canadian. So I thought, okay, hiver, I'll start there. I didn't really want to write about HIV. It's just too heavy a topic. So I switched it around and made it ivH. And IV is for in Roman numerals. H is the 8th letter in the alphabet. So I thought, okay, I'm going to write 52 poems. Each poem will have 8 stanzas. Each stanza will have 8 lines. Each line will have 4 syllables. Hence, math. So it was a very exacting constraint. At first, the poem seemed rather awkward. I couldn't really find a rhythm. There's no natural rhythm in it. I didn't want to do a Rayworth and just kind of have it all run together. I wanted there to be a kind of Bob Creeley aspect to the thing where each line was self-contained, and also that each stanza was self-contained. So there's very few instances in the book where one stanza overlaps another. So you have 8 pockets of what? I once described poetry as entropic aeroplanes of sense. And that's pretty accurate in describing this. And I hope Rob McLennan doesn't use that in his review. At any rate, that's where it came from. I've been fascinated with the whole notion of mathematics and poetry. When I was teaching creative writing at Queen's in the early 90s, another more progressive English department guy was teaching a course in poetry and math, which I never got to sit in on because he was running it at the same time as my class. That was really a bummer. Would have been nice. So I've been fascinated with that whole notion. In my pedagogy, I do encourage people to count. And quite often if I'm critiquing someone, the only critique will be that there's too many syllables in this line. I don't care what it means. It's a number of syllables. It's got to sit just right. It's got to be in the context of what's happening. And usually people are quite astounded that anyone would pick on something like that. B.P. Nichol's favorite letter of the alphabet was H. And I was aware of this shortly after first encountering B.P. So that became part of the whole project, was to give the poem also a visual field. So every page looks exactly the same, except for titles being a little bit different looking. But there's 4 stanzas on the left, 4 stanzas on the right, title right in the middle. So it does look like an H. So it's a series of H's. In that sense, I would consider it concrete poetry. The limited vocabulary from which I derived 4H comes from the novel, Un Rude Hiver, which I scanned and then put through an internet translation process. And then all the words that didn't make any sense were eliminated. Any word over 4 syllables would, of course, have to be hyphenated. So I avoided them as much as possible. I went over 52, much to my chagrin. But I figured, well, hey, enough constraints in this book. I mean, this book has more constraints than anything I've ever done before. (4H30). The field of fair had just traversed the street. In its arms, a number of red living rooms times 15. To the spoils in his laugh only. An antagonistic mirror now reflected its own image, limply hanging far in front, which, by abstraction, regards one frieze. These disorders rang up nothing indefinite against the sound, entry of stores of loneliness, apparently without thinking. He believed and was reminded that various incidents of horror, famous and terrible, now burn in their large galleries. 2 astonished customers, while considering your suffering, returned the milk. Just 13 years short of morning's entered constraints. My brother Christ makes a point of celebrating birthdays every 50 years, and in the evening pretends to shave 2 things downtown. A small dinner for a family does not feel aged, obviously, inviting some colleagues to think about the hour, not the banquets. With art and strength, the well-informed started to soap the crown up front, while victories entrusted with my offer to await the day. 4H31. Now, this is an opportunity for you folks out there in TV land to actually see the flow of narrative that is extracted from the original source, Un Rude Hiver, by Raymond Queneau. A well-informed imbecile had many walking illusions, while including that thing known here as serious fun, just to vomit. That's one good thing left of winter. Another risk between us for at least the time you still manage to split hairs of silent facials. Please understand that he had switched his host on a divergence, which gave the above book to him when it poured water in the basin. Important things not to get stuffed. An amount of cranium one thinks important. Everything despite our deep insanity. He rectified the line, cut the mustache, brushed the jacket, approved of each themselves, paid by each mouth smiling in the cosmetic street. At the bottom, the word France is synonymous with Germany. Poor idiot, just undergone thought improvements. Beautiful moods. Cold climate is unusual, which makes the wind very merry. Could not feel his legs or swallow the water for 15 minutes. They exchanged quick remarks, tightened the owner's hand, already there when it arrived. Benign excess made his language superior.